What's up everyone, Beast Mode back here with another video. So today I just wanted to recap my tournament run with the Cat Plant deck. Unfortunately, we did not make the top cut for a few reasons. First, I don't feel the deck is competitive enough to actually hang with the meta decks right now. It was pretty obvious playing the game. The quality of cards that we have here are just not nearly as good as the decks like Black Wings and Frogs and Vayu and Miracle Fusion. It's just not enough high quality cards. You're always kind of playing like from behind, it feels like, because you just don't have those high impact plays. Titanial is probably your strongest play, and unfortunately, I think 50% of the games I had that card, it was in my opening hand. It's just brutal. So anyway, my tournament recap was round one. I actually played against Damon. I think his name, Discord name might be OG, but he's in the top cut of this tournament, and he played very, very well. I knew from turn one the way he played, he didn't actually hit my face down monster. I think he was reading Hamster, so he like summoned an Armageddonite, just didn't attack, which pretty much told me that he has a oppression face down. So we kind of went back and forth, and at one point that card never got flipped. I kept saying it's an oppression. I set a heavy, and we were at like the kind of a simplified game state, and I was really getting greedy with the heavy. I wanted to get a +1. I was hoping that he would draw a trap and then set it alongside the oppression, and I could, pro storm for a +1. It didn't end up happening. It ended up slamming Dark Arm and destroyed the heavy. And then my follow-up play was just a Debris Dragon. And then obviously he flipped the Royal Oppression, and that was it. So, and then game two, I ended up getting deck devied for like, I don't know, 3 cards or something like that. It was a simplified game state. But the problem is the quality of cards that this deck has when you're top decking is just so low. Like, you're drawing Air Bellums and like Mark of the Rose, and they don't necessarily have a monster on the field, or you're setting Raikos or Hamsters, and they're just slamming Dark Arms and Royal Oppression. It just feels like the cards are just not good enough to hang with some of the meta decks. So that was my round one. Not really upset that I lost that match at all. Obviously, a great player in the top cut right now. So round two, I actually played against Insidious. Good friend of mine at this point. Great Go player, really starting to learn. Edison plays fairies. I was able to 2-0 just because I went first and like trapped Dust Shoot, and I pretty much played like an idiot because I just knew the whole hand. So it just really shows you why Dust Shoot is so broken, because you can just make suboptimal plays just because you know your opponent doesn't have anything to stop them, and just really be aggressive that way. Game two, I don't really remember. I side decked a few Smashing Grounds and just kind of played the Titanial game, and ended up winning that. So round three, I played against Blackwing. So I actually was like really trying to play as well as I could. The problem was they ended up going first and opened Shura Whirlwind, and then so I ended up losing that game. It's pretty common when that happens. Game two, I actually went first and like set a Hamster or something like that, and a Bottomless, and then he went MST double Whirlwind summon Bora. Somehow or another, I actually won that game. I don't really recall how. And then game three, they of course, got to go first, and that's another reason why going first in this format, I never realized it up until more recently. It is so strong. Like, obviously, going first is strong, but the statistics from our War League, and I think I've said it before, right now in War League, if you go first, you win 62% of the time. So, unfortunately, it might be more of a coin flip format than I initially thought. And it's not that you can't ever win. Obviously, some number, 38% of the time, you win. And then, of course, if you're a really good player, you can probably increase those odds. But just going first and having your opponent open Shura Whirlwind, I'm sure that 62% goes to something like 80% just winning like that. So, and that, again, points out the quality of cards, right? There's nothing in this deck here that I'm going to be able to draw that's going to just let me have an 80% chance of winning game one. Even if I summon Lone Fire into Titanial, it still requires you to have another plan on the board. It requires setup. So game three, he ended up opening Shura Whirlwind again, and I ended up making like a cool play where my opponent was like quickly trying to activate Dust Shoot in draw phase, which you should never be doing in the draw phase. You should wait until your opponent moves through draw phase, because turn player has a priority in draw phase to have the first action. So I actually retained priority and like chained MST on the face down. So at that point, that puts me down to 3 cards, so you can't activate Dust Shoot. So it didn't matter. It was just one of those games where they had Whirlwind going, and I think they plus like 4 off of Whirlwind, and I was in the game for quite a while. But the deck is just resilient. The Blackwing deck, it's just Blizzard after Blizzard and Dark Arm, and it just doesn't stop. So I ended up losing round 3 to Blackwings. I think what else did I beat? Oh, I might have actually, might have been round four. Round three, I think I played Hero Beat on stream. I had like a +4 on him at one point, game one. On that, I had like a +4, yeah. And just the quality of cards I was drawing, they just weren't very good. I could not end the game, and it was just all it took was like an Alias, and then they top decked an Honest and top decked a Miracle Fusion. It was like they literally top decking, and the cards that they were top decking, I just could never beat. I think at one point they made a Catastor, and I couldn't out the Catastor. So I lost game one despite having like so much card advantage. And then I ended up winning games two and three. I don't really recall how it happened, but um, so it never felt like I was dominating anybody when I played the deck. I'll be honest. Sometimes, when I play zombie, sometimes I can just, beat people in a few turns because like if you draw those hands that the combo just works, you can just dominate people. But this deck, it just doesn't feel that way. And then round four was the Blackwing player. And then round five, I ended up playing despite being 2-2. I didn't have anything going on. I was going to be seeing the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie later on in the evening, so I figured I'd play another round. And I actually played against Machinas. Machina, Raiko. The deck I actually just played in tournament. And that deck kind of plays like this deck, but feels that it actually has a payoff. Like Machina Fortress is actually worth committing to. And they ended up going first, and again, that already put you at deficit. I ended up like going to game three with them. It was just kind of a back and forth game, but again, when I'm summoning Air Bellums and they're summoning, the Bionic Stratos, Gear Frame, and Fortress and all that, it's hard to win. So I ended up dropping after that. I was going to go see the movie. It didn't matter. I was out of top 16 contention anyway. Some thoughts on the list. I would say that this deck could top an event. It's come very close. It would require more play testing, which I did 0 play testing with. I'm not upset by that at all. I didn't expect to win the event with the deck. It's not overly complicated to play anyway. It plays like Quick Draw, similar. I think if you have some bracket luck, I think if you play test and you hit the right matchups and you win a lot of like dice roll, I think that you can top with this deck. I don't think it's like unheard of, but if you decide to play this deck in a tournament, I think that you are really throwing away your chances at having a good tournament run because it just doesn't have what it needs to beat the main decks. And we can just run through some of the top decks. You have Blackwing, Shura, Whirlwind, or Whirlwind with like Sirocco is just almost instant win. It's just so strong. Number one, Frogs. Number two, they have Miracle Fusions in the deck if they're playing the hero version. Substitute, Dupe Block, Monarchs every turn for +1s. You can't compete with that. This deck does not have that power. Vayu Turbo literally is so explosive. It plays Royal Oppression, which is extremely strong. They flip Royal Oppression on this. You have a couple Raiko, a Dust, and you have to hope that you can slam a Caius to out it. Hero Beat, they have Miracle Fusions. Zombies, I would say that their combo is single-handedly better than any combo in this deck, okay? Because it requires you to have a setup. You have to either mill a Dandelion, or you have to have a Monk into a Cat, and you have to dodge Bottomless. Like, that just is not worth the payoff to committing, in my opinion, committing to this deck. Zombies don't have a single card that just wins, but the combo, if you can Goblin with Diva into Brio and it survives, it's just the most explosive combo that there is in the format, in my opinion. So those are some of the top decks, and why they're so good is because the quality of cards and combos are just so much better. So I think that if I was to play a deck like this, I would just play Quick Draw, because I think Quick Draw does what this deck wants to do, but better. Like, Drill Warrior is actually worth committing to, because if you can commit to a turn 1 Drill Warrior, it's really hard for your opponent to deal with unless they have Royal Oppression. Of course, a lot of the cards that beat this deck beats Quick Draw, like Royal Oppression and Deck Devi and all that, which is why Quick Draw is not an S tier deck. It doesn't win enough because the quality of cards are just not there compared to some of the other decks. And the it's hard to always rely on a Drill Warrior combo if you're not going first. And, if your opponent gets to go first and sets a Bottomless or something like that, and you make the Quick Draw play into Drill Warrior, you just lose right there because you commit so many cards. So I think if I was to play this deck, I would just play Quick Draw. That's pretty much what I'm saying. I know the deck is fun. It was very fun when the combos work. Attacking with Air Bellums a few times and dropping cards out of the hand is great, but it doesn't happen consistently enough. And I wasn't playing particularly great yesterday. I felt like I was playing very loose because the deck, I felt like I just had to do that to be able to win. Like, the longer these games go on, especially against the Hero Beat player, it's a matter of time before they start top decking, Miracle Fusions. And how do you win? Like, you can't really win in that situation here because your power play is a Titanial. So I felt like I was just like playing heavily into Mirror Forces and Torrentials, summoning monsters extra, which I never really would do, but I don't feel like you have a choice with this deck. I think you got to play a little bit aggressive. The goal is to really sit there and grind out your opponent to make the rescue cat play, but sometimes you just don't have the time to do that because they're beating you down. Like, you can't sit around against Blackwings when they're opening Whirlwind Shura. So deck is fun. I recommend playing it. I think that you could have some fun with it at locals. If you're playing in a high competitive tournament, I'm not sure that it'll get you there. The people who've gotten 9th place with this deck have been playing this deck for quite some time, especially Snack, who pretty much created it. So I think that's why they've had more success. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that I can put down the Cat Plant deck and we'll move on to a different deck. But it was very eye-opening this tournament, and just seeing how strong those top tier decks are. Just you're doing every bit that you can to play and stay in the game, and those cards are just one top deck after another, and they're just so much better than what you got. So congrats to my opponents who won, and especially Damon, who topped, and looking forward to seeing the rest of the top cut unfold today. So if you guys have any comments, please leave them below, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.